ICE. I'm calling ICE, screeched Deborah Calloway, sprinting across her St. Augustine lawn, clutching her phone like it was a holy relic. My drywall crew calmly sipped coffee while one of them, Agent Morales, flashed a badge and said, "That's funny." "So am I." You could hear the record scratch across the cul-de-sac as Deborah stopped mid-sentence, pale as her HOA binder. "My name's Rafael Rafe Jimenez, 45, former Army Intel, now working in federal logistics with the occasional home project on the side. I bought a fixer-upper in Larkspur Meadows, hoping to renovate in peace. Hired some friends from a federal agency task force to help on their days off the record, nothing shady, just walls, flooring, and minor demo work. The kind of neighborhood where every mailbox is regulation black and every lawn is precisely 2 3/4 inches tall. Enter Deborah Calloway, HOA president, neighborhood spy, and self-appointed Homeland Security deputy of her imagination. She had binoculars in every window and once accused a pizza delivery guy of operating under an alias, because his name tag said Mike but he looked vaguely Mediterranean. When my crew showed up in work boots speaking fluent Spanish, she immediately assumed the worst. I could practically see the gears grinding in her head like a broken garbage disposal. She started slow with the harassment campaign. Subtle photos from her upstairs window, a few anonymous complaints to the HOA about unlicensed contractors, and one particularly bold moment where she yelled, "Alto!" from across the street in what I can only describe as gringo Spanish. My crew found it hilarious. Agent Vasquez said it sounded like she was ordering Mexican food with a head cold. The escalation was gradual but persistent. She began timing my workers' lunch breaks with a stopwatch, claiming they were loitering on American soil beyond regulation hours. She'd march over with her little clipboard, demanding to know why they were eating foreign food on a residential property zone for American meals only. Agent Torres nearly choked on his sandwich when she asked if his burrito contained any contraband spices that might indicate cartel involvement. Then came the notes slipped under my door like some kind of xenophobic fortune cookies. "We speak English in Larkspur Meadows. This isn't Tijuana. I will not tolerate undocumented labor on my cul-de-sac." Each one typed in Comic Sans font because apparently even her racism had to be whimsical. She escalated to leaving fake ICE business cards in my mailbox with handwritten notes like, "They're watching," and "Your neighbors are concerned patriots." Her surveillance became more aggressive. She installed a Ring doorbell specifically aimed at my driveway and started a neighborhood Facebook group called Larkspur Security Watch, where she posted blurry photos of my crew with captions like "suspicious individuals" and "verify before you trust." Mrs. Patterson from 3 houses down actually commented, "Deborah, that's just Raphael's drywall team. They helped my husband install our new ceiling fan last month." The breaking point came when she started following my workers to their lunch spots. Agent Morales told me she'd shown up at the local taco truck, demanding to see the owner's immigration papers, and threatening to call the health department about unsanitary foreign cooking practices. The owner, a retired Navy veteran named Carlos, apparently told her exactly where she could stick her concerns. In English and Spanish. At one point, she parked her Range Rover sideways to block the construction van and announced, "ICE has been notified." My crew just laughed. I told her politely to move before she got cited for obstruction. She puffed up like an angry peacock and declared, "Good. I'll get cited for America." Agent Vasquez whispered to me, "Sir, should we tell her we actually are ICE?" I shook my head. Sometimes the best comedy writes itself. The next day, she went full Delta Force fantasy. She burst onto my property during lunch break, phone filming, shouting, "Where are your visas? Where are your green cards? I demand documentation." She was wearing what I can only describe as tactical suburbia gear, a khaki vest with about 20 pockets, cargo pants, and hiking boots like she was about to storm the beaches of Normandy instead of harassing construction workers eating turkey sandwiches. Agent Morales, drywall mud still on his gloves, calmly pulled out his badge and said, "Federal Immigration Task Force, ma'am. You're interfering with an active government agent. You want to go down for that." The silence was so thick you could cut it with a trowel. Deborah's phone dropped like her blood pressure. She staggered backward, whispering, This is a setup." "No, ma'am," Morales replied, deadpan. This is drywall. But Deborah wasn't done. Even after seeing the badge, she started demanding proof of federal employment and verification of legitimate government business. Agent Torres, who'd been quietly mixing joint compound, stood up and said, "Ma'am, I've been documenting federal crimes for 15 years. Would you like me to add obstruction of justice to your growing file?" She actually asked him what crimes he was talking about. He started listing them: harassment based on national origin, trespassing, intimidation, filing false reports, mail tampering. The beautiful thing was watching her realize she'd been committing actual federal offenses while trying to report imaginary ones. Her face went through more color changes than a mood ring in a hot tub. She kept stammering, but there, they look. Agent Vasquez finished her sentence. Professional? Competent? Like they know what they're doing? Yes, ma'am, that's generally what we aim for in federal service. Turns out, the crew weren't just contractors helping a buddy. They were part of a federal interagency logistics training program, helping me while waiting on their next deployment rotation. All certified. All documented. All very aware of harassment laws and civil rights violations. Agent Vasquez had been taking notes in a little black book this whole time, documenting every racist comment, every trespass, every moment of what lawyers call actionable behavior. I filed a formal complaint against Deborah for racial profiling, trespassing, and verbal assault. The HOA board, already tired of her national security alerts, immediately suspended her presidential authority pending review. Apparently, she'd previously reported a Vietnamese family for possible bamboo espionage, and tried to have a Methodist church investigated for suspicious bell-ringing patterns. Deborah got a visit from a very real ICE liaison and a civil rights officer from the DOJ. She tried to explain she was just being vigilant for the safety of American neighborhoods. They explained she was just 2 complaints away from federal charges for harassment and intimidation based on national origin. The color drained from her face faster than water from a broken sprinkler system. The officer, a no-nonsense woman named Agent Kelly, had apparently dealt with vigilante suburbanites before. She told Deborah that federal agents don't appreciate being reported to their own agencies by civilians who can't tell the difference between a badge and a bottle opener. She also mentioned that filing false reports to federal agencies is a felony, and that harassing federal employees while they're conducting official business can result in up to 5 years in prison. Deborah tried to backpedal, claiming she was just concerned about property values and didn't mean any harm. Agent Kelly pulled out a file thicker than a phone book and started reading incidents. Reported the mailman for suspicious route deviations. Called the fire department about foreign smoke patterns from a neighbor's barbecue. Demanded to inspect a Girl Scouts cookie inventory for contraband thin mints. The list went on for 20 minutes. Apparently, Deborah had been a federal nuisance for years. The neighborhood found out fast. Someone put up lawn signs that read, "My lawn crew is legal. Ah, you." Another proclaimed, "Let freedom ring," but not Deborah's doorbell. Her kids stopped coming outside. Her husband started mowing the lawn himself for the first time in 20 years. Poor guy looked like a hostage in a Polartec vest, glancing nervously at the windows like Deborah might emerge with more patriotic duties. The HOA board held an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited, but Agent Morales was still working on my kitchen cabinets when Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door. She looked apologetic and embarrassed. "Raphael, we had no idea about Deborah's activities. The board voted unanimously to remove her from all HOA positions effective immediately. We're also implementing new policies about harassment and discrimination." She handed me a formal apology letter signed by every board member except Deborah. The final nail in Deborah's coffin came when she tried to organize a neighborhood protection rally in the community center. 3 people showed up: her husband, her teenage son, and Mrs. Henderson from the corner house, who thought it was a bake sale. When Deborah started her speech about foreign infiltration of American neighborhoods, her own son stood up and said, "Mom, you're embarrassing our entire family. These are literally federal agents helping Raphael fix his house." Even her husband nodded in agreement. Deborah voluntarily resigned from the HOA board 2 weeks later after a unanimous vote of no confidence. The final straw was when she tried to report my crew to Homeland Security and accidentally called the Department of Agriculture instead. She spent 45 minutes explaining suspicious, foreign agricultural workers to a very confused corn subsidy specialist. The recording somehow made it to the neighborhood group chat. Her face turned the color of a fire hydrant when Agent Morales played it back to her through my security camera speaker, adding, "Ma'am, we grow democracy, not corn."